Hel- Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coalition. My name is Dana, and I'm here to talk to you about this little tiny, small, independent movie called The Batman by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell. You got John Turturro in there, Jeffrey Wright, and Paul Dano. Just as some of the people who was in the movie. And my goodness, was this an experience unlike any other? Yes. Was this one of the best movies of the year? Absolutely. Is this a masterclass in filmmaking, acting, storytelling, and cinematography? Darn right it is. What I love the most about the Batman is that we didn't sit there and watch actors act. We watched them become their roles. And overall, this really felt like the rebirth of the classic detectives movies that we've seen from the past, where it really builds on story and it builds on action. And when you get to the finale, it's this huge, massive event that just keeps climaxing over and over again, where you're like at the very end, where's the rest? You wanted more because it is only 3 hours. It is a 3 hour movie that feels like it is only 45 minutes. That's how quickly it goes, but it is very thorough. It is very detailed. It is absolutely exceptional. And everyone involved with this needs to have just a round of applause and have their accolades. Send them flowers, send them awards, send them everything because this is the Batman. This is the classic story of Batman, where we are stripped down to his roots, and this is a detective story. We've had Batmans in the past that kind of really touched on the fantasy element, and that's really great, and that's wonderful. And all of the different iterations of Batman, round of applause to you. But right here, the Batman is kind of a different take. It's a different feel. It's a different way of what Batman is done. It felt like it's a different way. It's a different way, even though this is classic Batman. This is comic book Batman. The story itself felt like a crime noir, where everything is beautifully well lit. It is in its own environment, and it is something that is, like I said, a return to the classic detective movies. So let's kind of dive into this. This is going to be completely spoiler free, so don't worry. I'm not going to get into and this happened there and that over there. Nope. We're going to just talk a little bit about the characters. We're going to talk about the acting. We're going to talk about the beautiness of it all and how this kind of really makes it different than other Batmans. Right off the bat, we're introduced to Batman, Bruce Wayne, and kind of the Drifter. What is the Drifter, you say? Bruce Wayne, as we know, the billionaire socialite, is not that he's a billionaire, but he's not that socialite yet. He genuinely hates people. He is antisocial. He is a hermit, and I love it. But when he becomes the Batman, he is someone who is out there with all of his confidence. He is very purposeful. He's very intelligent. Not to say that Bruce Wayne isn't intelligent. He's very intelligent. I'm just saying that he is a completely different character than when we see him as Bruce Wayne. He has that intelligence. He carries it throughout. That's why he's the world's greatest detective. But it really genuinely feels like two different characters. And the Drifter is someone who drifts between these characters. He is someone who is the surveyor of the land. When we kind of open the movie, we see him observing Gotham. We see him looking at the different people, studying their movements, studying just people in general, crime, what's going on with the city. And then when he has his target, when he knows exactly what's going on, that's when he becomes the Batman. And then when he's done, that's when he becomes Bruce Wayne. But at the end of the day, Bruce Wayne is very tortured. This is this tortured soul who he's been doing this for 2 years. And this is to get Gotham back to its old glory. And Gotham is just really seedy, is full of crime, and it feels hopeless. It feels like at any moment you step out of your apartment, you're going to get bashed in the head. You go to lay down and go inside your apartment, someone's going to break in and bash you in the head. It feels very unsafe. And feels like everything's dead. You don't go to Gotham for hopes and dreams. It's where hopes and dreams die. And they've created this incredible environment, very well detailed. Like I said, the cinematography is exceptional. The little minute details is so much in there that helps to create this Gotham as a whole, these people, the seediness of it as a whole, that it feels very authentic and it feels very realistic and very gritty. So, like I was saying, Batman, he's kind of the self-appointed embodiment of vengeance. He is a vigilante that we know, but he strikes the fear in the heart of the criminals. They know that there's someone who's running around there beating up savagely, beating up all of these criminals. So there's kind of everyone looking over their shoulder. What's going on? Is he there? We don't know. Who is he? We don't know. Uh, so you really feel that he is someone who is a part of Gotham, but the people in Gotham don't know who he is. They're scared, kind of, but they still go out and they do the crime, but they're still just looking over their shoulder to make sure Batman isn't there. Um, what's really interesting about Batman is that Bruce Wayne and Batman, they're very emotional people. Um, and the whole thing is driven by their emotions. There's a level of rage within Bruce Wayne and Batman that makes him really difficult to beat. You have that he's powered through vengeance. He's powered through rage, and it's really hard to stop him. Which is why when he's beating up on the people, there's like a sense of savagery where even Catwoman is like, "Oh my God, what's going on here? Can you please stop? That's enough." Um, but the idea of the Batman really feels like it was a way to explore the concept of being masked and wearing a mask and what does that really mean. And that also goes into the Riddler, because the Riddler is a masked man. And when you see Riddler, and then when you say Edward Nashton, they kind of feel like they are completely different people. Not to I feel like I'm jumping ahead, but we already know that Paul Dano is the Riddler, and he is exceptional as the Riddler. And he's not just exceptional as it, but they've written this character to truly feel like a villain that you are scared of. You don't know what's gonna happen. He could kill you at any moment if he wants to. That's how much power and control he has within this movie. So I am jumping over a little bit. Let me just kind of dive in to what's been going on. So, like I said, for the past 2 years, Bruce Wayne has basically given himself over to the night, where he is stalking the crime ridden streets of Batman and he's picking and choosing the petty crime battles. And of course, he is always winning what's going on within those crime battles. But he is just one man, and there is crime everywhere. I mean, Gotham, basically New York City, only one person. So you need some help. And he realizes that he needs help. And within that comes this serial killer. There's a campaign that's going on, and there is a serial killer that is targeting Gotham's elite. And there is a series of sadistic ways of how he is basically killing all of Gotham's elite. And it leads to a trail of really cryptic clues that tie in directly to Batman. And I'm not going to say how or why. And Batman, like I said, he's only one person. And you have Jim Gordon, who's not Commissioner Gordon yet. He's new. He doesn't trust anyone. The police department, is very corrupt. He doesn't know who's really his friends. He doesn't know who his enemies are. And you have someone who's trying to really solve cases, but again, you can't trust anyone. And then you have Batman, who's out there trying to get rid of crime, but he's only one person. So you kind of see that they need each other. And this Riddler's crimes is what kind of brings them together in this relationship, whereas like we trust no one but each other, and they have a really wonderful working relationship that really pisses off a lot of people, obviously for obvious reasons, because you have, oh, he's a vigilante, are we supposed to arrest vigilantes? But at the same time, he's helping us do our job more efficiently. So there's a lot of uneasiness to him. So without spoiling anything, like I said, Riddler is out there. He is targeting all of Gotham's elite. He is targeting specifically Batman. And there's a reason as to why he's going to target him. Like I said, this is a story that ends up becoming very, very personal to Bruce Wayne. And within that, we are introduced to a whole cast of characters that you guys already know of. So we have obviously right here, this is Bruce Wayne. This is when he becomes Batman. We have, of course, his trusted ally and his butler, who more is his butler, but is also his advisor, his confidant. And you see the relationship within that. We have Alfred Pennyworth, played by Mr. Andy Serkis, and they have a really interesting relationship. You can see and know that he genuinely cares about Bruce Wayne, and he's always there trying to help Bruce Wayne. It kind of feels like he needs help with helping Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne really needs therapy at this point. There are a couple of moments where Alfred really wants to just punch him in the throat, and he, of course, doesn't do that. But there are some moments where we get emo Bruce Wayne, who definitely deserves to be punched in the throat a couple times. Then we have John Turturro as Falcone, Carmine Falcone. Then we have Selena Kyle. We'll get into her. Oh my God, as Catwoman. Colin Farrell as Penguin. My God in heaven, what he does with this role. And then, of course, there is Paul Dano as Riddler and Paul Dano as Edward Nashton. And they are two separate characters. They're the same person, but when we talk about mask and who is really yourself and the mask that you wear, oh my gosh. So, kind of going back into this a little bit. Um, like I said, there's the serial killer, and we have all these different characters that come into play, and there are evidences that's growing out there, and how it connects to all of these different characters, and what's really going on, and who's really the culprit. And it's about unmasking not just Batman and Riddler, but unmasking Gotham City. Who is really Gotham City and who's really running Gotham City? So, like I said, this is a mystery. This is a psychological thriller. This is something that it really felt like. You ever see someone in the room with like all the different post-it notes, and that connects to that, and that connects to that, all these different conspiracy theories? That's what this kind of feels like. It feels like I'm stepping into the mind of a conspiracy theorist, and we do literally step into the mind of a conspiracy theorist. What ends up happening with the Batman is that Matt Reeves has made this, like I said, a very realistic, grounded story. But at the same time, it feels like it's built on a very epic, high octane action scale where the visuals are incredible. There's grit, there's edginess, but there's also an emotional exploration into the twisted inner workings of the mind. How does the mind work? What happens when someone feels that they're betrayed? How deep does the rabbit hole go, and how far do you go into that rabbit hole before you completely lose yourself? And you know overall, at the end of the day, Gotham, is used as a fear and a tool, and Batman uses that fear and the tool. uh Edward Nashton, Riddler, uses that. Carmine Falcone, he uses that. So does Penguin. They all use fear as a way to getting what they want. But there's a lot of different elements in that goes into play. These are not these are not these are not one-dimensional characters. These are fully fleshed out people that has insecurities, that are grandiose, but once that mask comes off, they just feel like tiny people. And that's what I really loved about what they did with this. Um, so overall, without kind of, again, no spoilers, um, what ends up being created is this dark movie where corruption is at every peak, is at every corner, and these characters, they're there to serve either their own purpose or to help others who within themselves is kind of to serve their own purpose. Let's just kind of dive into the characters. We have the Riddler, who, as we know, as the Riddler, but he is a very serious Riddler who has completely lost his way mentally. It felt like I was watching someone who was a conspiracy theorist, who is completely gone, who may have joined organizations, terrorist organizations, that kind of person. He is incredibly disturbing, and what Paul Dano does, it really feels like he lost himself completely in the role, where He's completely unrecognizable. Yes, we have him as the Riddler with the mask. We can't see him, but then when he's Edward Nashon, he's completely unrecognizable in this role. He, like I said, this is not actors acting, these are actors becoming their role. And Paul Dano is so incredibly dark. He's so incredibly twisted that it feels like a serial killer that of the Jeffrey Dahmer, of the Ted Bundys. Um, he is targeting so-called pillars of society, and there is a wave of new murders and the crime scenes, and he leaves behind these incredibly detailed ciphers that, you know, kind of reveals the truth about not only just these individuals, but also who Batman really is. Um, in doing so, he feels like a villain who cannot be saved. There's no redeeming qualities about him anymore. He's completely lost himself. But at the same time, when we meet Edward Nashton as just regular Edward Nashton, he seems like just, a random neighbor that you've met in the street. He feels like someone who, hey, what's up, Edward? Hi. Goes on about his day. You don't really think of. And that's what the beauty of it is. He's able to blend in so effortlessly that we don't even pay any attention to, which also makes him really hard to find at the same time. Last, then we also have, Selena Kyle, who is played wonderfully by Zoe Kravitz, who very interesting. We all know of the story. Many years ago, she wasn't even allowed to audition for Christopher Nolan's Batman because she was considered too urban. And so she was denied that opportunity, even just to kind of play the roommate. But what she does here, what one person's is a discardedness is someone else's treasure. And my God, she's a treasure in this movie. As Selena Kyle, there's a genuine care that she has for others w- that drives her curiosity. And there's also this beautiful sexiness about her without there being any sex. She is very secure who she is as a person. She is out there looking out for others. And then she's also a thief. But it's a Gotham. Doesn't really matter. No, but she needs Batman's help. They end up being intertwined in what's going on with the Riddler that becomes a much bigger story that I'm not gonna explain, but they end up needing each other's help. And what's really interesting is Batman and Selena Kyle don't like each other. Selena Kyle doesn't know who Batman really is at this point. Everything's fresh and new, but this really is kind of the origin story of Catwoman, of Selena Kyle. And we end up seeing why she becomes Catwoman and what really drives her and why she does the things that she does as Selena Kyle. And the chemistry between both Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz is incredible. Like I said, this is well casted, but the chemistry that everyone has with each other is literally perfection. There's a genuine dislike, but it also seems like they can't separate from each other. It's like they're in different scenes, but you kind of feel like there's still a connection, that they just met and there's a spark there that they don't act upon like that, but there's just this incredible strong chemistry where at one moment I was like, do I need to leave the theater? Y'all need a moment? And all they did was say hi to each other. That's how strong it is there. But she is incredible at this. The fight scenes that she has, this it feels like it's very realistic. So this is not something where she's just randomly magically all over the place. Everything she does, her training, it feels like someone, if you take a class and whatever training she got her training in, you could be able to do this if you had drive and focus too. But, there's a moment where it gets a little, the fighting can get a little sloppy because that's realism. Not everyone is a perfect fighter. So I really love what they are able to do with those two characters alone. Then we have Colin Farrell as Penguin. Wow. I don't recognize Colin Farrell at all. And yes, we have the whole prosthetics that he's under. And yeah, it's hard to recognize him because of the prosthetics. But when you just listen to him and you watch him acting in a scene, you couldn't tell me this was Colin Farrell. There's such um an interesting take that he has on Penguin, he feels like he's an actual threat, but at the same time, he's very insecure. And because of that insecurity, he's completely over the top, but not over the top where it's zany and it takes you out of the character. He's loud, he's boisterous. We know people like that in real life. They think that they have all the answers. We know people like that all the time. But when they're behind closed doors, they're very insecure. They're insecure about how they look. They're insecure about, whether or not they're good enough. And we see that with Colin Farrell. He brings that to the screen, and the way how he carries himself, the way how he changes his voice. I'm like, who is this guy speaking? It doesn't sound like Colin Farrell, but at the exact same time, it really feels like he's having a blast at the Penguin. Like, this is like so much fun to him. He shows up to work and he gets to play this really fun character that's also really dark and twisted as well. And I truly love what he brings onto the screen. And again, the chemistry that he has with everyone is really great. This is a guy that's completely disgusting, but you still want to see more from him. Where you're like, okay, Colin Farrell, do your stuff too. Like, you're happy when you see him, But everyone gets equal amounts of screen time. They don't shortchange anyone. He is incredible. Then you have John Turturro as Carmen Falcone. He's a mob boss as well, but he's kind of a different mob boss. There's a different way how he walks and how he talks and how he carries the room. He holds the room, and it's really great with what he does as well. But again, he's grounded in realism where it's not over the top. He feels like someone who's genuinely, where did he get his money from? Why is he always going to nightclubs? What's really going on in those nightclubs? What's really going on with the GCPD? But he would have the answers. But you kind of just view him as someone who's a little bit shady. Like, I don't really trust everything that he's saying. And I really liked what he bring on the screen with that as well. But yeah, overall, this movie is fantastic. The cinematography is beautiful. It is a dark film. It is very gritty, and you feel that in every moment of every second. But there's also light and there's hope, and they seem to incorporate all of that within the look of the film, the cinematography, the way how it's filmed. But like I said, this is a movie where Paul Dano completely shines, and this is a character that we've never seen before. We talk about There Will Be Blood so many times where he plays this kind of quiet character, and then at the very end, he completely snaps. What happens if we get the character that completely snaps and he's that way all the way throughout? There's no going back for the Riddler, and the way how they created the tiny details, the minute details that they created for the Riddler. You truly feel that you're inside of the mind of someone who is genuinely insane. And because of his insanity and the way how he's driven, you cannot stop him on what he's doing. And that is what makes this such an exceptional film. That's what makes an exceptional villain. You don't know what's gonna happen. If Bruce Wayne was to drop dead in this and end up in one of, Riddler's devices, I would believe that. Anyone at any moment, there's a threat of their life where I'm like, yeah, they could die at any moment. I feel that. This is sick. This is sadistic. I feel like, remember Seven? I feel like we're stuck in a Seven movie. And what Matt Reeves does is absolutely wonderful with how he's able to build that tension. There's a moment where, uh, how you just reach for something? So, boom, I'm reaching for something. But what Matt Reeves does is he takes his moment for Batman to reach for something because you can feel the threat. You can feel that level of uneasiness, and you can feel that uncertainty. Is what I'm about to pull out going to completely explode? Is it gonna make me laugh? Is it like a cruel, twisted joke? And we get these cruel, twisted jokes in the movie, but we don't know what it is to expect. So he creates this tension very naturally with just simple filmmaking of how he frames a character, how he frames an action. Where we're like, oh my God. But then we get to the point where this is a Batman film. At the end of the day, we get that hard hitting action where this is Batman. This is someone who what is going on? Like I said, there's rage that fuels Batman throughout this movie, and you feel it every time he's within a fight scene where he's just going at it, and you're like, stop, please stop, you're gonna kill the guy. And it really feels that he is at that moment where he knows that he can kill someone, but he decides to pull back because he lets them live. Like, "Oh, I'm gonna let you live today." You know, I may lose it at any moment. You may be the one who I end up killing, but I'm gonna just pull back. And that's you don't know what he's going to do. That's how far his rage drives him. So overall, this is a beautiful, wonderful movie that infuses psychology and emotional suffering on its main characters. Um, yes, we know that Bruce Wayne has lost his parents and he responds to his trauma by trying to do something good with his pain, but he is someone who is still tortured to this day. And you have Andy Serkis as Alfred, and he really feels like he can't help this kid. He's trying his best to help him not cross over to that dark side. To help him to do something good, and he's in there. He's solving riddles and puzzles and everything else along with him. And there's a moment where we see that Batman, Bruce Wayne, genuinely cares about him. Where there's a moment where he can lose everything, but there are certain people, and you feel like Alfred is one of those people that he genuinely needs in his life. And that's also what I love about this is he is a grown man, but also at the same time, you can see that he's a lost boy. And it really questions like how do you take away that pain? And yes, you do something good, but what happens if it what happens if you don't have someone there to direct you? And that's also why I feel that Riddler is kind of the same as Batman in that sense. They're both very misguided. well, well, Riddler is very misguided, and he goes the complete opposite way of where Bruce Wayne is. But there's a connection to them. They just decide to go on opposite spectrums. But there is a moment where, they're completely misguided. They lose everything, and it really decides on who you're able to become. And because you kind of feel that Bruce Wayne had that support in Alfred, he didn't turn up as Riddler. But if Riddler had that support that Bruce Wayne had, he could have turned up easily as Bruce Wayne as well. So again, without making this too long, this is an exceptional movie. This is gritty. This is action packed. This is for me one of the best Batman movies that takes what Christopher Nolan did with The Dark Knight and kind of makes it even more expansive. I know people are going to compare. I don't really like comparing, oh my God, who's better than the other one? I really don't like doing that. But overall, like I said, this is exceptional, and it feels like something that is because it's grounded in such in realism. It feels like something that can happen right now, that can happen today. That's happening. I'm in New York City, so it can happen in New York City. Batman, we need you. The crime is crazy over here. So overall, I think that this is a perfect rated R horror noir that is a reimagining of the character that is so desperately needed because it is refreshing. It is something we really hasn't haven't seen before, and I am looking forward to. We do know that Colin Farrell, Penguin, he is getting a spinoff. I am looking forward to that spinoff because what he does with this is so incredibly enriching and it's so much fun. And yes, you don't find yourself rooting for the bad guy, but you're like, I want to see more. So maybe that didn't work. What's your next move here? What are you really about? I also want to know your backstory. This is a part where I really want to know everyone's more of their backstory. That's how interesting and wonderful Matt Reeves have crafted this movie to be, where I want to like, okay, we got one movie, but what happened before? What's happening after? What's going on? And speaking of after, after credits, they're after credits. Sit down, don't go anywhere. Enjoy the ambiance of the music. The music is beautiful. It really helps to lift the movie, and it sets the emotional tone for what's really going on. It doesn't go over the top where it feels like it's forcing you to feel something. It just enhances what you're feeling. And so it never takes you out of the movie. And again, if you have the ability to see this in the theater, I strongly suggest that you see this in the theater because there are so many different details that's going on that you want to see this on the big screen and you want to hear this with the music just right there. And you see this on the big screen and you have the music going and it's a full experience. You fully immerse yourself in this detective story. And like I said, you got to turn on the noggin because at moments you're like, wait, what's going on? Well, I remember this clue over there. And what does that clue mean over there, and there's a rat over here. Who's really the rat? Is this departed? I don't know what's going on. But I strongly recommend this. This is, for me, one of the best movies of 2022. I know it's only February, but this is easily my top one movie. Best movie of the year. Lo siento. Maybe that'll change later on when we get other movies that are coming out. But again, this was worth the wait. Is it worth something seeing in theaters? Um, it this really feels that that and when you hours, but if Nolan's movie there and every is being done. And we have more of the Batman content. We have more videos, more interviews that are going up. We're going to break down the psychology of the Riddler because we really can't touch upon that because there's going to be a lot of spoilers. So I'm going to wait until next week to post that up. So everyone just kind of have a really great day. Um, enjoy everything. Enjoy this movie. When you're going to see it, when you're going to see it. If you plan on seeing it in theaters or if you plan on seeing it on HBO Max. So thank you.